After watching this video, you might want to go exploring in your backyard for a bit, if you do have one. You can find money, ancient relics, fossils, you never know. I shouldn't get your hopes up, but I don't know, check it out. Let me know if you've ever found something spectacular in your backyard. I'm James and these are the top 10 unexpected discoveries found in people's backyards. First up we have gold coins, $100 million worth. Unexpected, but pleasantly welcomed. Back in 2014, a couple were walking down a path on their property that they had walked along plenty of times before, but this time they spotted something. It looked to be a rusty can sticking out of the dirt, so they decided to dig it up and see what was inside. Turned out to be filled with gold coins dating back to the late 1800s. Now, the face value of the coins was only about $27,000, but some individual coins were so rare that they could have gone for $1 million a piece. A couple were quoted at the time saying, "We want to help other people with some of the money. There are people in our community who are hungry and don't have enough to eat. We'll also donate to the arts and other overlooked causes." In a way, it has been good to have time between finding the coins and being able to sell them in order to prepare and adjust. It's given us an opportunity to think about how to give back. Now, at one point, the government had apparently stepped in and they're like, "Oh, well, actually, these coins may have been stolen years ago and they might belong to us." Luckily, that wasn't the case, but this is why if I found something like this, I would not be reporting it to the public. I'd head straight to the black market and never be heard from again. Even if the coins did belong to the government, I mean, do they really need them back? Is the country in such total chaos without them? Or can they just give people a break? Like, come on, I could go on about the government. Anyway, let's talk about more found money. Only this time it didn't end so well. In August of 2011, a 51-year-old Illinois resident named Wayne Sabaj picking broccoli in his backyard when he happened to discover $150,000 stashed in a nylon bag. Finding a stack of cash would be amazing for anybody, but this was especially exciting for him as he had been out of work for a couple years at this point. All the same though, he did the right thing and took the money to the authorities, where he was told that if nobody claimed it by the end of 2012, the money would be his. But someone did step forward, his neighbor, 87-year-old Dolores Johnson, who said she attempted to get rid of the money because, according to her, it was cursed. She would die just 5 months later though, and it was decided that a portion of the money would go to her daughter and the remainder to Sabaj. However, just 10 days before he would receive his bit of the money, Sabaj too sadly passed away. Next up we have Mastodon Vertebrae. In 2015, in Bellevue Township, Michigan, a contractor named Daniel LaPointe Jr. was excavating his neighbor's backyard for some reason when at one point he noticed a 4-foot bone protruding from the dirt. His neighbor Eric Witzke came out to help and together they started digging it out. Turned out to be a rib bone, and this would be just one of 42 bones they'd find in total belonging to a massive sized mastodon. They dug up legs, shoulder and hip bones, vertebrae fragments, and the base of a tusk. That's what I'd really want to find. I'd be a little disappointed if I didn't find at least a part of the tusk. That's the whole star of the show when it comes to mastodons. It'd be like finding a velociraptor but without the claws. Just kind of a letdown. Might as well just throw all the bones in the garbage at that point. The bones had several tool marks etched into them as well, making it seem like the beast had been taken down by ancient humans. Pretty cool. Number 7, the graveyard. In an astonishing turn of events, a New Orleans man made a startling discovery while attempting to install a pool in his backyard. Whenever I say New Orleans, oh, commenters hate that. I gotta go New Orleans. Anyway. The incident unfolded when the homeowner, Vincent Marcello, decided to dig up a section of his yard for the pool's construction. To his disbelief, he actually stumbled upon a historic cemetery buried beneath the surface. 13 caskets, each holding human remains, were unearthed during this unexpected incident. And an investigation was promptly launched and the area was cordoned off to preserve the integrity of the site. Archaeologists and cemetery preservationists were called in to assess the significance of this burial ground, and their analysis revealed that the cemetery dated back to the 1700s. In response to this remarkable find, the pool installation project was put on hold for a bit as the man's property was designated a protected historical site. Marcello wasn't even all that bothered by the whole thing. In fact, you could say he kind of dug it, saying it's all part of the New Orleans culture. Next up, we have the cheetah. In October of 2008, A 9-year-old kid, Toby, was playing in his backyard when he stumbled upon an unexpected visitor, a cheetah. The incident occurred in Cambridgeshire. Turns out the cheetah had escaped from the zoo through a broken electric fence. The boy had been playing on his bike when he spotted the big cat and immediately ran inside to tell his mom as the cheetah pounced on his bike, started chewing up the seat. At first, his mom didn't believe him either. I wonder why, thinking he was just, being a kid with an overactive imagination. But she took a peek outside anyway, and sure enough, there was the cheetah chilling in the backyard. She immediately contacted the police, who swiftly responded to the situation, along with the zookeepers, who arrived at the scene and managed to safely capture the cheetah without harm having been caused to the animal or residents. Unfortunately, Toby apparently had recurring nightmares after that, though, which I don't blame him for. Number 5, giant armadillo fossils. In 2020, Juan de Dios Sota, an Argentinian farmer, made an incredible discovery on his property while transporting some cattle. The river had dried up recently due to a drought, revealing the fossilized remains of 4 massive-sized armadillos, also known as glyptodons, which have been extinct for about 10,000 years. There had never been 4 of these animals discovered in the same place until this incident here. The shells were 5 feet long, about 2 inches thick. They weren't able to determine exactly how they died, but they had all been facing in the same direction, as if they were all making their way towards something. These particular glyptodons were believed to have died 20,000 years prior to this. And apparently part of the reason they likely went extinct is because our ancestors used their shells as shelter. Yeah, that's how big these things were. Next on the list, we have the tunnel to the pyramids. This one is absolutely insane. An Egyptian citizen, only known to the media as Nagy, was illegally digging in his backyard. I don't even know how to describe it. An amazing discovery. 33 feet beneath his house, he discovered a tunnel made up of stone. Now, already, that is really cool. Not something I'd ever forget. I'd be gathering up a crew of Goonies to go exploring it, but archaeologists were sent to the scene and discovered that the tunnel actually led to the Pyramid of Khufu, the oldest and largest of the 3 Giza pyramids. There's always been a legend that there was this underground causeway between the pyramids, and archaeologists had actually been searching for the passageway for decades. It was right in some dude's backyard the whole time. If he just not reported it and just kept digging his way through, what an adventure. I don't know. I didn't know stuff like this actually happened in real life. Helps, I guess, that he lives in Egypt. But, Number 3, medieval treasure. In 2007, an Austrian man was digging in his backyard near Vienna, attempting to expand his pond, when he happened to dig up a bunch of treasure. And I do mean treasure in the classic sense. He didn't just find money, he found fairy tale treasure, jewelry dating back 650 years, rings, brooches, ornate belt buckles, many of which were studded with jewels. It was even determined later on that some of the pieces had been made for a royal court. Incredible find. Feels like something right out of a classic fantasy movie. I can't find anything like that here in Canada. Now, what would you guess some of these 200 some items would be worth? I actually guess it was maybe $500,000 or something. Maybe I just don't know anything about this kind of thing. But apparently it was all worth about $150,000 or 100,000 euros. Doesn't seem like all that much for what it is. I mean, I'd take it, obviously. I'll take any money I can get my hands on. But I'd probably be a little let down with that estimate. All right, let's move on to something gross. A lot of these discoveries have been really cool, so now I want to talk about something you wouldn't want to find in your backyard. Gotta keep things varied, In 2012, a man named Li Ziwei was putting some dates out to dry in his backyard when he described seeing what he thought was a snake by his fence. He got a little closer to it, and it turns out it was actually a massive-sized earthworm measuring about 19.5 inches. It's disgusting. Apparently he didn't think the same as me though, because he said he wanted to keep it. I don't know how I'd handle this situation myself, but I wouldn't want it anywhere near me. Honestly, I'd probably just set it on fire. Anyway, as to how it got so big, nobody really knows. It had obviously been eating really well though. Large bugs, mice, rats, small dogs, I don't know. Finally, we have the fallout shelter. In 2015, a man named John Sims had recently moved into his home in Tucson, Arizona, and had received a tip from the previous owner that there may have been a fallout shelter buried somewhere on the property, having been built somewhere around 1961. First, he just grabbed a shovel, started just aimlessly digging up parts of his backyard, but came up empty. He worried that maybe it was buried under a bricked-in corner of the yard or had possibly collapsed, but Sims didn't give up and continued his painstaking search, finding a sketch of the shelter through city records and using a metal detector to finally pinpoint it. He finally found the entrance and was able to pry open the heavy metal hatch. Being a fireman though, he knew well enough to test the air for mold first and wait until he could have a few people around on the surface to make sure he wouldn't get trapped when he decided to descend down and explore. Unfortunately, the shelter was empty aside from some rubble, but he decided to restore the structure, planning on using it as an escape from the intense summer heat. Also, just knowing you have a place to go if some kind of crazy disaster kicks off, it would definitely help me sleep easier at night. And with all that said, I've been your host James, and I'll catch you, yes you specifically, in the next video.